What do you guys think? Have you had any sort of times in your life when you have taken a bit of a front foot in trying to be more extroverted, more sort of, I was going to say socially controlling, but you know, leading conversations? I find myself naturally doing it when I'm in the company of people who I know value what I'm saying. And it also depends what I'm doing. I don't always feel like I'm in necessarily the mood to be socializing. Every time I try to be extroverted, I immediately burn out and start avoiding socializing. But if I'm very close friends with someone, that same kind of animated, engaged behavior comes off effortlessly. Yes. Yeah, it's kind of a strange one. I find myself going in somewhat of a loop with things. I'll have a string of very, very good social interactions and perhaps a more sort of positive, confident mind state for a while, and I'll continue doing that up until the point I have a negative interaction, and then it makes me become a lot more sort of like, I guess I just don't feel as safe to speak my mind as much, or like perhaps my view of some things, it kind of puts it, and then it goes down, and then I feel the need to socialize again, so I sort of build it back up, and it's kind of this, it's like in many things in this life, it's like a very strange push and pull like cycle. Paige says, I think I might be naturally kind of an extrovert, but I go back and forth between wanting to socialize, wanting to stay home for many years. Yeah, so one of the things with mental health conditions is obviously it can be impacted by other things, but it also can impact the way that you view things and the way that you think about things, the sort of cognitive processes that are going on in your brain. And so it's quite difficult to know where something is coming from, whether it's something that I need to fix or whether it's something that is the result of just my brain being my brain. Because it could be I'm feeling worse because I'm not socializing as much, or it could be I'm feeling worse because of my mental health, and then me not socializing as much is good for me because I'm drained. There's those types of things. I think just managing day-to-day stuff, and then you mix in the whole alexithymia related things that sort of muddle up your ability to tell what you're feeling, and it makes just daily management of your own sort of mental well-being pretty difficult. And don't even get me started on like actually conceptualizing what is happening. Camps Guy says, hi Thomas, is it bad not to ever feel completely lonely? I would say that's pretty good, if you don't feel lonely. I guess it might be disadvantageous in some respects if you don't feel lonely and you also don't really want to connect with people, and so you might get into a situation where you have something bad in your life and you don't have anyone to fix stuff. I'm just thinking about possible downsides to never feeling lonely. That could be something. I watched a video recently that was talking about sort of how, this one person sort of had the idea that self-esteem issues are an ego-related problem. In a strange way, it's basically boiling down what they were talking about. They were saying that you can have an ego problem where you feel like you're the best thing since sliced bread and be extremely overconfident about your competency in the world and yourself and such. But you can also have a type of ego problem where you feel like you're doing the worst in the world, and it's you kind of attach yourself. You're the top of the bottom, if that makes sense. I think that's one thing that I've tried to wrestle with a fair bit in my past. For all intents and purposes, I have struggled a fair bit in life, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that I struggle the most out of everybody else in humanity. It's hard to know sometimes, because being in the YouTube spaces, being a creator and such, I don't think it's a very good baseline for how like people are. I feel like definitely with social media these days, it's kind of, I don't know, people have a certain vigor about them, a level of conviction in what they say, which doesn't always add up to their competency or the reality of their situation. And I'm kind of surrounded by people like that, you know, every day watching YouTube videos, and again with the sort of finding the middle path kind of attitude, the very sort of grey thinking of it all. You know, what is a healthy amount of self-esteem? I have no idea. How confident should I be? Please, somebody tell me. Should I be not so confident? Am I being too overconfident? What level of esteem should I have for myself? Because I'm told very frequently by people in my own life that for what I've done in this life so far, I should have high levels of confidence, but I've never really felt that way. I might get it sporadically, but I sort of, again with that cycle, I catch myself being perhaps too egotistical or overconfident and characterize that as a bad thing, and then go the complete opposite, and then, you know, I sort of feel bad because I'm not as being as confident and sort of in communication and how I feel about myself. And then I start building it back up again, and then I kind of catch myself at certain times and I go down. It's like the whole cycle again, you know? I think being overconfident is better than being under. Yeah, that's the thing. You know, it's I kind of agree with you, but I get repulsed by overconfidence because, again, it's the mismatch between confidence, competency, and conviction. I don't particularly like that mismatch. I even get put off on it in myself, like if I'm making a video, like just even small things. I don't particularly like getting things wrong in that sense and talking about it with such conviction, I guess. But you kind of have to in the YouTube spaces. Conviction is very appealing. Are you still okay with yourself if you totally fail? Everyone is worthy and valid and valued for simply existing. I'm very wary of giving myself too much credit or having too much confidence, as I've said. You know, at the same time as it not being particularly great for having the most conviction in what I say, or in terms of my confidence. You know, a lot of the things that people in my life tell me that they enjoy about me is that I'm not like that. It's a difficult one. Usually I approach things by not comparing myself to others or judging how good I am at something. I'll say I'll do this thing the best I can do at the moment. I think that's a good idea, 100%. Confidence and self-esteem the same thing or different? I think healthy confidence comes from self-esteem. But you can definitely fake confidence. Doesn't always mean that they have high self. Sometimes, like even if you take the example of people, you know, narcissistic individuals, inside they have a generally very, very low self-esteem. And so they sort of create this outward character in order to purvey some degree of confidence and competence, you know. So I guess in a sense they can be quite separate. TX2 says, I struggle with talking to people with my autism. I often pause. I struggle talking to people with my autism. I also often pause when my tics act up and I don't know what to do. That's a difficult one. Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? Having more conversations with people helps build your confidence and your communication, but it's good to have confidence about your communication to interact with people. Like the whole thing about, you know, you've got to have some work experience to get your first job. You know, they always ask you for work experiences. It's kind of like that, isn't it? And so it's hard to get the ball rolling. I'd say if you're struggling to start communicating, I'd try and put yourself in other people's vicinity, but in a very low pressure way. In situations where you can sort of chip in, you know, you can try it, or perhaps with like-minded people. You know, one of the things that I tell a lot of people who struggle with getting started with, you know, meeting people, because you may not really know many people that you can go with that can sort of give you that sort of social support. I always say, like, either go somewhere that you're familiar with, you feel comfortable at, with people that you don't know, or go with people that you do know to places that you don't feel that familiar and comfortable with. I'm usually pretty confident when not depressed. I think it comes from black and white thinking. I tend to believe I'm right in my beliefs and perceptions. I mean, it is something. I mean, that's a whole other conversation about the black and white stuff. But yeah, me too. When my mental health is good, I'm on fire. There's nothing that can stop me. Coming back to the whole conversation that I was saying about before, you know, it's like it's hard to know sometimes if it's your actions that are affecting your mood, or whether it's just your mental health which is affecting your actions. You know, and quite often, if I have a very rare, very low mental health day, as in like very low depression, anxiety day, I feel great. I sort of see who I am again. I'm like, I could be like this if it wasn't for these pesky, strange thoughts in my brain. Those days are important though, because it kind of reminds me. It makes me more confident in, I guess, advocating for myself, you know, having low self-esteem and such. It's important for me to surround myself with people who kind of hype me up, you know, but not become too reliant on it, if that makes sense. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, you should drive your own internal confidence with things, but you know, at what point does that make sense? Because we are social creatures. Is it really very reasonable to expect every human being to feel good without some type of positive feedback about what they're doing? I don't think it is. I think there's a balance to it. Man, I waste so much time ruminating and daydreaming some days. Yeah. Again, the whole balance thing. You know, should you be completely externally focused, or should you be internally focused? I feel like when you're externally focused, you don't sort of ruminate or think about things, you miss a lot of things, and it can sort of hinder you from growing. But at the same time, you ruminate too much and think about stuff about yourself introspectively too much. It's just not very healthy. So I think that's one of my philosophies. I'm very Buddhist in a sense, I would say. I feel like I take the middle path. I find that the answers that are in the extreme region of things don't tend to be the ones that are the most correct. You know, they're the simplest, and they probably make you feel the best, but life is grey and very subjective. And one thing that I've learned from growing up and through introspection is that my own thinking is very subjective as well, of course, and not always completely flawless.